food is medicine. They don't need drugs, they don't need all, they need food. And the Europeans were actively stopping the development of these GMO technologies which could feed the world.
The nation sits down with Sir Richard J. Roberts, Nobel Laureate for Medicine, for a discussion on a wide range of subjects, including the future of mRNA and his advocacy for GMOs as a solution for global crisis. So you are a biochemist, you are a
molecular biologist. Yes.
And you are also called a modern-day gene genie. But how would you call yourself or define yourself?
I'm a molecular biologist and a bioinformatician. Most of what I do these days is to look at material on a computer and to analyze DNA and protein sequences on a computer.
So when they talk about DNA, I think in this time and age, especially post-COVID, it's unavoidable to talk about mRNA.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Some people kind of feel like it's something they not know, and it's when they not know, it's kind of scary. But what do you think about the future of mRNA?
Well, I think the good thing is we've shown that it can be very useful for vaccines. That was not why it was originally, while you know, Katie Carrico and Drew Weissman, why they didn't do their work for that purpose. They were doing it because they thought that this was a way of treating other diseases, cancer and other diseases. Right. And I think, you know, it was quickly picked up by the people who wanted to make vaccines, who realized they could make vaccines this way. I think we will go back. We will make more vaccines using it, but we will also use it in order to try to solve other diseases and take care of other problems, other biological problems that people have.
Would there be a way that general people can get the benefit from it too?
Well, I mean, if it's medicine, everybody benefits, yes.
Is it not depends on the, what's it called, the pharmaceutical company and whatnot?
Well, you know, if you didn't have pharmaceutical companies, you wouldn't have a lot of medicines.
Right.
The problem I have with pharmaceutical companies is that they don't always do what is necessary to cure diseases. They try to do what is necessary to make sure they've got a market for the rest of their lives. So, you know, they really like things that will alleviate the symptoms of disease, because then you have to take that for the rest of your life and you make money. They don't like things that cure disease, like antibiotics. You can't make money out of antibiotics, given the current way that we both find them in the first place, develop them, and so on. It's a very expensive business. You can't make a lot of money coming back out of it. And we need to find a better way of making antibiotics.
Because once you are cured, you don't need the medicine.
Exactly, you don't need it anymore. So, you know, if I give you a medicine that you will take for 2 weeks, and then you never need it again, how can you make money out of that?
But that means it's actually possible to have some kind of medicine that would just
cure disease, of course, absolutely.
But it's not happening because of this.
It's not happening because of the costs of developing medicines like that. And the pharmaceutical industry, you know, they like things that you have to take for the rest of your life.
Oh, this made me
you know,
think
you have pain, right? So they develop pain medications. Right? You can't cure pain. All you can do is alleviate it. And so for them, that's very good. So they like those sorts of things. And you know, if you think about it from an investment standpoint, it makes much more sense to spend a lot of money developing something that people have got to take for the rest of their lives. And it just illustrates the society we live in. Money is everything, right? So, you know, human health is an excuse to make money for a large number of people. And it's unfortunate. I think money is corrupting our society in ways that we're not fully aware of. We don't appreciate the damage that it does.
But there's no other way to get out of not involving money.
Well, but how much money do you need in order to be happy? Right? So here's the question.
Is different, right?
Yeah, for every person it's different, but you know, you don't need a lot of money in order to be happy. I don't recall ever doing anything in my life just to make money after I got a paper round when I was a kid in order to make a little pocket money, right? And, that made only a small amount of money, but it made me happy. It provided everything I need. And you have to ask yourself, how much money do you really need to be happy? Do you need 2 houses? Do you need a yacht? Do you need a plane? Well, no, most people don't need that. Most people just need enough food so that they can eat, some nice place to live, and the opportunity to raise their kids successfully. It doesn't take a lot of money to do that.
I have been listening to some of your lectures, and you were talking about GMOs. GMOs, I would say, is something that, like in European country, they kind of against it. I think in Thailand, we not much talked about GMO,
right.
But you were talking about that it could be an answer to food security.
Well, I think, there are many ways in which GMOs can be helpful. So I picked up on this because of food. I'd gone to a meeting in Belgium celebrating Mark van Montagu's 80th birthday. He was the guy who developed and understood this method. He discovered that bacteria were transferring genes into plants. He realized that that could be used to put not genes that the bacteria wanted, but genes that we wanted into plants. And so we celebrated his birthday, and I listened for a whole day to plant biologists in Europe complaining they couldn't get money, that every time they spoke, Greenpeace would demonstrate against them. They just had so many problems because of the anti-GMO movement. It struck me, I felt very sad about this, and the following day I'd been asked to go and talk to the European Commission about the future of medicine. And I was going to talk about vaccines and, drugs and all sorts of things. And I said, well, I'm going to change. And I put together a talk in which I made the point that for the developing world, for the 800 million people who go to bed hungry every night, food is medicine. They don't need drugs, they need food. And here was a way to do it, and the Europeans were actively stopping the development of these GMO technologies which could feed the world. And so I started an organization of Nobel laureates. We had about 100. I did a news conference in Washington, and we tried to make this case, and I'm still doing it. Okay, 10 years later, I'm still doing the same thing. We have made some progress, so things are doing better. The Europeans finally are realizing, not because they care about the developing world, but because they care about themselves. They realize now champagne grapes don't grow very well in Champagne anymore. They're having to grow them in the south of England. That could be fixed using GMO techniques. So there are things that are being affected by climate change that also GMOs can help. So, plants are very good at sucking CO2 out of the atmosphere. Just imagine if you could make them suck twice as much as they usually do. All the fields of wheat, rice, everywhere, if they were all sucking out twice as much CO2 as they normally do, that would be a big help to solve. It is, absolutely is possible, yeah.
Wow.
Right? And so here's something else. The other thing that I've recently become very aware of is that an awful lot of farmers are the poorest people in the world. And if they could double the amount of crops they grow or the yields from those crops, they could be lifted out of poverty. And so I think GMOs offer a chance to lift people out of poverty. And I was in Beirut earlier this year. I talked to the dean of the business school there, who is now going to try and do something in Lebanon in order to try and raise the farmers out of poverty using GMOs. Earlier, about a month ago, less than a month, actually 2 weeks ago, I was in Bangladesh. I talked to a man there who said he thought the same thing could be true in Bangladesh, that if they could introduce more GMOs, they could lift the farmers out of poverty. So here you have food, climate change, poverty. GMOs can help. And the Europeans need to realize that there is no reason for them to be against it. If they don't want it, well, don't use it, but don't pretend it's dangerous. Don't try and tell the rest of the world who really need these that they're dangerous.
Why do you think they're so opposite, though?
Oh, because it's been very profitable for them. So Greenpeace tripled their income as soon as they came out against GMOs. Huge amounts of funds going in. And then they gained political power on top of it.
Wait, when you say they, is that any specific group of people?
Greenpeace. So Greenpeace were the people who came up in Europe to start the anti-GMO movement. And they got away with it because the European population in general didn't like the Americans taking over their food supply. And Monsanto made the mistake of introducing a GMO plant into Europe. And instead of charging less for it because it was easier for them to make, they charged more. Okay? And they tried to make money from it. And then the farmers, of course, having to pay more for these seeds, passed the costs on to the people. So it was easy to say, hey, you know, we can't be against Monsanto because we buy all our foodstuffs from them anyway, but we can be against GMOs. And that started the anti-GMO movement. And Greenpeace really capitalized on it. You know, they're a not-for-profit. They rely on people giving them money. And they were able to convince a lot of people, not just in Europe, but around the world, to give them more money. And in Europe, their budget shot up. They never had a better fundraising campaign than being against GMOs. And along the way, they were also successful in making sure that they got political power as a result of it. If you look at the Green parties in Europe, they've managed to get a lot of political power, and a lot of it is because of their anti-GMO stance.
Oh, wow.
And it's terrible, you know,
Right.
because I was in Africa at a meeting in Rwanda talking to agricultural ministers, and they all want GMOs because their people are starving, you know, and this could help. But the trade ministers said, oh, no, 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 you can't do this, we can't do it, because then Europe won't trade with us anymore. Okay, and so there's this knock-on effect from the anti-GMO stance in Europe that it's causing problems, just causing major problems in the developing world.
So any agricultural country that want to do trade with Europe right now, they have to be very aware of GMO.
That's right, very aware, yeah. And so, you know, my answer, I was talking to the Prime Minister of Uganda, and, you know, I was saying that you should just don't trade with Europe anymore. Trade within Africa. Sell your products around. Forget Europe, right?
Well, but they need their big market, and the European has money,
yeah,
right?
Well, money, 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 yes? It is the worst capitalism.
Or
It's
maybe,
terrible.
Maybe we have to flip it around and be in a way that make the producer kind of force the buyer to buy what's available, maybe?
Well, no, all we've got to do is to educate people properly so they realize these things are not dangerous. You know, Greenpeace have spent huge amounts of money scaring everybody. And you know, once you get scared of something, it's very difficult to reassure you and say, no, 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 that was a mistake. And if Greenpeace came out and said, hey, we made a mistake, you know, GMOs are perfectly okay, but they won't do that, right? They've got political power, they've got money, they don't want to yield that in the sake of good science.
Talking about educating people,
Yeah.
nowadays people are more connected virtually. They tend to
Yes.
find information so easily on internet and whatnot. How do you feel the relationship between scientific research, scientific data, with the general public knowledge?
Well, I think, you know, here one of the big problems is social media, where as soon as you say you like something, so you know, you read an article, doesn't matter what you say you like it, you just get more and more of it all the time. And before you know it, you've become indoctrinated with all of this stuff, and you never see the other side. So if you start to read about a conspiracy theory, start to read about GMOs being bad, you just get more and more of it all the time, and then if a scientist comes along and says, hey, GMOs are perfectly safe, you don't see that. It doesn't even make it onto the board, and so we have to educate people much better, and I think starting with children is good. You know, I gave a lecture recently at a local school, 11 and 12-year-olds, and I talked to them about GMOs. And great kids, really nice kids, asked lots of good questions afterwards. They listened to what I said. They'd all been told they had to write to me afterwards and say what they thought about it.
Okay.
And so there were 7 or 8 of them wrote and said it was the first time they felt that they'd been spoken to as though they were adults. And I thought this said something pretty bad about the teachers, first of all. But one girl wrote and she said she'd gone home and talked to her parents who were against GMOs, told them what I'd been saying, and they changed their minds.
Oh, that's
Okay?
good.
So young people I think hold the key here. We have to educate the younger generation properly before they get all tied up in social media and just hear one side of every story. We have to make sure they hear the truth.
You were talking about indoctrinated by social media. It's one thing that I always talk about is that right now all these social media platforms kind of choose for consumer what to see.
Yes, right. That's right. That's exactly right.
They have the power. It's
Yeah.
not the one that even create the content. The social media actually the one that decide algorithm and has
Yeah.
the power.
Yeah. No, it's very bad.
How do we deal with that?
Don't follow it. I don't participate in social media.
Not at all.
Not at all. No, not at all.
After this, you will have to go to give the lecture at the Rangsit University?
Yeah, on Monday. I think Monday and Wednesday I'm giving lectures.
And then you will go down to Songkhla.
Yes, right. Yeah, that's on Wednesday. Yeah.
Okay, and you were in Thailand for the Japan-ASEAN Bridge series event.
Yes.
To give out lectures
Yep.
and whatnot. I think
Yes,
all
and
the
I've done
students
this
will be
before.
Super excited to hear from you.
Well, I hope so.
Something different from their normal realm and whatnot.
Yeah.
I think they will be very excited. Well, thank you very much for your time today.
You're very welcome. It was good. Nice talking to you.